Hello guys, thank you for checking out the new episode of the Devlog. If you haven't watched the last two episodes, here is a brief summary. I was about 5 months into development with my game in the Unity engine, but after the Unity runtime controversy a couple of weeks ago, I decided to take the effort to switch to a different engine for this project. Please check out the last 2 episodes if you want to learn more about why I decided to switch to Unreal. In this episode, I want to show you how far I've come with the Unreal engine in the first month. And just like with Unity, I wanted to take care of pathfinding first. But to motivate myself, I wanted to implement something that I didn't have in the Unity project as soon as possible. So I decided to add a parallax effect. This means that objects in the background and foreground move at different speeds as the camera moves, and this creates more depth in the image. My pathfinding system in Unity couldn't do this because all the elements were on the same layer. As you can see here, in the Unity project, the different layers do not move independently when the camera moves. But in the Unreal project, you can see that when the character moves sideways, the layers in the background and foreground move independently, creating a more three-dimensional look. Let me quickly show you how this is set up in Unreal. I start with a blank scene in which only a few blueprints exist. First of all, the player. I am using the Paper ZD plugin for characters in the game, but I will not go into detail about this right now, because I think it makes more sense to take a closer look at the character blueprint when more essential functionality is implemented in it. For now, it is just important to know that this is the object that represents the player and is responsible for playing the correct animation depending on its movement. Oh, and by the way, if anyone knows how to get rid of this giant blue arrow, please let me know. I really don't need it and I somehow can't find a way to delete it. Next, there is the camera blueprint. This blueprint contains the logic to follow the player, and it is important to notice that this is not an orthographic camera, but a perspective camera with a 90-degree field of view. This is important to be able to create the parallax effect. There also is a directional light in the scene, which is not really necessary for now, but I will come back to this in another Devlog episode. And lastly, there is a folder called nav, which is containing 3 blueprints. Dijkstra, which is responsible for calculating the shortest path from point A to point B in a scene. And to define point A and point B, there are the waypoints start and goal. The logic behind all that is the same as in my Unity project, so please check out episode 1 of the Devlog if you want to learn more about this. Now let's set up the background images, and let's start with the sky. I prepared a blueprint called BP Plane that is responsible for setting up background images. I drag and drop the BP plane into the scene and simply swap the source sprite here, and rename it in the outliner to keep the overview. Now let's add 2 additional planes for the midground the same way. Right now, all the images are on the same layer, so the engine does not know which image to render in front. And there is no parallax effect when I move the camera sideways. So I took use of Unreal's construction scripts to make the engine set up all this for me. You can see this slider here, which says depth index. And when I make this a higher value, the image moves towards the camera, which is right here, and simultaneously scales the image down, so that from the perspective of the camera, the size of the image keeps the same. But now when I move the camera sideways, we have the parallax effect that we wanted. Now let's define the area that the character can walk in. To do that, I can switch the normal plane blueprint to a blueprint that I called plane walkable, which has a lot more functionality, as you can see in a minute. Most importantly, there is a new component called floor mesh. Let's switch into side view and make use of the brush editing tool to create a new mesh. Save it as a static mesh and drag it into our walkable plane blueprint. I wrote a few scripts on this blueprint that I can run from the editor to set up all the waypoints and connections, and that's it. The character can now walk on this plane in the defined area. Now let's do the same thing on the second walkable plane, which is a little further back in the scene. But now when I click on the area in the background, we get an error, and that's because the Dijkstra algorithm can't find a connection between the 2 planes. You can see all the connections on the 2 planes right here, but we need to set up a bridge between both planes. So I made a blueprint for this too. Let's drag and drop the BP bridge into the scene. And now let's define a start waypoint on one plane and an end waypoint on the other plane. And I can add in-betweens if I want to make a more complex path, but let's keep this simple for now. When I click Make Connections right here, everything should work now. Right now the character gets smaller when he moves to the back, because he actually is moving away from the camera, as you can see here, because he's moving between the 2 planes. But I can also define an angle on a plane to simulate depth on each plane individually. Let's make this a 30-degree angle on the first plane and a 10-degree angle on the second plane. And now you can see that the character gets taller when he moves towards the camera. The cool thing about this setup is that I can put sprites anywhere in 3D to make the scene more three-dimensional, and I think this opens up a lot of possibilities to make the game visually interesting. So I have to say I'm super happy with these results after only 1 month of working in a game engine I was completely unfamiliar with. But of course, there were some things I stumbled over in Unreal. But I think it's too early to talk about pros and cons of both engines right now. Maybe we do that in a future episode. But in general, I have to say I'm feeling very comfortable in Unreal right now, and I even think that by the end of the year I may be further along with the project than I was with Unity. But we will see. Please don't forget to wishlist the game on Steam, and see you on December 1st, everybody. Thank you so much.